Welcome back to the Piping Pastor. Today I'm enjoying some vertical limit. I am near the end of my plug on that. I'm smoking it in my workhorse pipe, which is the Boswell Billiard. It's not my favorite pipe. My favorite pipe is my favorite pipe because of the emotional connection to it. And I've shared that story before, but it's my Curtis Mearson Churchwarden. But when it comes to a pipe to just get it done, or I think at one point, I can't remember who it was, they did a VR question for a giveaway, and it was like, if you had one pipe on a desert island, what would it be? And this was my response because it's got nice thick walls, it's a good smoker, and it's just a workhorse. It gets along with pretty much any tobacco. It does best with the darker blends, so dark Englishes and Burleys and so forth. But when I first got it, after I broke it in, I did smoke some Virginias in it, and it gets along with Virginias fine. It just does better with the darker tobaccos, but and with the vertical limit, it's great. I am going to purchase that again at some point because on my rating scale, the vertical limit rose to the level of buy again. But I have some other stuff coming in I want to try first. And I am not much of a bandwagon person. So when a new blend comes out or a blend is popularly released, a lot of people will jump on it and do reviews and then buy a bunch and so forth. I like to wait because I'm in no rush. I've got plenty of tobacco in my cabinet. But B, I like to see if it's a tobacco that's going to stick around for a while. And I don't chase the limited blends. I'm not one of those people who will sit at their computer and wait for like 11:59 to hit so they can order, their max amount of tens of the new blend that comes out. It's not that deep for me. But since the Maestros have come out, I keep hearing more and more about them, and people are doing reviews of them and loving them. And I know Beans 316 is a huge fan of I think it's Puccini. And he and I have relatively similar tastes. I think the only tobacco that he really liked that I didn't think was quite punchy enough was Indaba. When it comes to like the Burleys and stuff, he leans more Virginias. I lean more Latakia. But when it comes to like the dark fire Kentuckys and dark Burleys, me, him, Parsimonious, we all kind of like the darker tobaccos like that. So I'm going to give it a go. And of course, they're sold out of Puccini because that's, I think, the most popular of the three. So I ordered 110 of the other two. It's like Allegro and I can't remember what the third one is. But blend wise, they sound pretty similar. So you know what? I'll give it a go. And because my I don't know if you can hear that or not, but there's a jet flying over really close to the airport, and the big planes, it's not as big a deal, but the smaller jets that fly in and out are always seem to be like lower altitude. I don't know, but anyway. But the uh, Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia Burley blends that I used to get from Country Squire, everything has changed there now. They've changed all their recipes. So I was like, well, I got to find replacements for those anyway. Initially, I was thinking I'll look at Milan because I want to try to support brick and mortars. But I was like, you know what? Let me give these Maestro blends a go. So I got those coming in next week. Also, Brothers in Arms. which is another one that's been out for a while. People have raved about, and it was available, so I said, sure, because it looks like those are going to stick around now because they've gained such popularity and so forth. So, and then hopefully at some point my Lakelands come in. I initially, when I reviewed Aaron Moore, and I got a comment from 13 Pipes, laughing comment. That's nowhere near Lakeland. I know, I said Lakeland-esque, but he was like, "No, you really need to try Lakeland, like a true Lakeland." And I was like, "All right." And I was like, "They're kind of hard to get a hold of over here." And he was like, "Oh, I got them in the States before." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I suppose you can. They're available. They're just always sold out." So I set reminders on Smoking Pipes to send me an email for like Interdale and Bosun, the cut plug, the Ready Rub. So we'll see. Because he was like, you definitely need to try those. That's a tobacco, part of the tobacco experience. And he likes super dark tobaccos. So, um, so we'll see. Those come in, I'll give them a go as well. But the next one will probably be Allegro on next week. So, in any case, on to our reading for today. So, back to the book. And I thought this one was a neat poem because it's a poem of a dialogue that Hardy wrote between uh, Little and Scott. These are the two Oxford scholars who wrote the Greek English lexicon. And the idea is that these two, they're struggling through it, they're having a hard time with it. And so he's writing a poem with a dialogue between these two. And the point is to kind of show how the rigors of academia can really wear you down, right? And the comments I have are the things that are the sentences. I'll get that word out eventually, that are underlined here by our commentator, I thought were rather poignant. So it's a 2-pager, but I'm just going to go through the first section because that's where our underlined lines are. Even now, if people only knew my sinkings as we slowly drew along through Capta, Lambda, Mu, they'd be concerned at my misgiving and how I mused on a college living, right down to Sigma, but feared a stigma. If I succumbed and left old Donegan for weary freshman eyes to con again, and how I often wonder what could have been that led me to blunder, so far away from sound theology to dialects and etymology, words, accents not to be breathed by men of any country ever again. So it starts out with Little kind of opening this poem up and talking about gosh, why am I even doing this? Why am I spending all this time at college doing all this research on a dead language? Because he's doing Koine Greek into English, and Koine Greek is not modern Greek, right? And it was the first Greek English lexicon, so it was a very important work in translation. But the lines that our commenter points out here, so far away from sound theology to dialects and etymology. So the poet Hardy is kind of channeling his the people in this poem and thinking and speaking kind of how he assumes they would have thought and spoke. And this is important in this poem in the way that this is pointed out, because Little and Scott were both religious people, as all men were in academia at that time. Oxford was very much a Christian school. So there were people there who were, non-traditional theist and so on and so forth, and closet atheists. But for the most part, they all belonged to the Church of England or some derivative thereof. And so they all were engaged in theology. In point of fact, in Oxford, the theology was referred to as the queen of the sciences. So you studied everything else so that you could learn enough, then you would know enough to study theology. That was like the the top of the mountain for academia. And so he's pointing out here that his authors, what would make me wander away from sound theology to study all this stuff, all this minutia, all this worldly human wisdom that is really good for nothing. And Hardy was not what you would call a Christian man. I talked about that before, right? So the fact that he points this out, that this is how these people thought, it's in his perspective a little bit derisive, right? A little bit of kind of poking fun at these old scholars who were steeped in Christianity and Christian theology and so forth. But once again, the words end up meaning more than what the poet intended. Words are powerful. Words have a way of describing something grander than what we may actually intend. Happens in sermons all the time. Any kind of artistic expression has, the possibility of revelation, right? And so this really put me in mind of the verse in Timothy. He's talking about not chasing after senseless knowledge and useless arguments, right? And putting your mind on things above. And there were some conversations I had this week with some people in my flock. And the point of the conversation was keep the main thing the main thing. There's a million things that can distract you right now, especially right now is a really super busy time for us. Everyone is just crazy busy with stuff going on everywhere. And I was sharing with them, it can be real easy to start focusing on all the little dots on your task list and then forget about what the big picture is. You need to have that big picture constantly in mind, even while you're dealing with all the jot and tittle. The overarching impetus for the entire action has to be in the front of your mind all the time. Otherwise, you get lost in the weeds and you wander off the path. So yeah, in this poem, he's maybe being a bit derisive, but he makes a salient point. And our commenter didn't write anything in the comments. He just underlined those two lines. So it makes me wonder which way he was going with that. If he was thinking, yeah, you know what, I need to keep God as my focus, and I need to keep the main thing, or if he was thinking, oh, it's silly that they think the main thing is God. Based on his other comments, I think it's probably the former. But for us today, it's a good reminder. Keep the main thing the main thing. Don't get caught up in the jot and tittle. Don't get caught up in the drama. Get caught up in what the big picture is. Well, I'm going to turn back to my vertical limit so I can finish this off and get started on some Allegro. And I'll let you know what that's like next week. So until then, have a lovely week. And as always, happy reading.